Seong Gi, that vacant-eyed doll, a figure from countless Korean textbooks, a very symbol of educational innocence, is violently contorted into something monstrous, an instrument of death, its mere presence a jarring cognitive dissonance, a grim jest made crueler by its sing-song voice and the seemingly harmless playground game it commands. The doll's robotic movements and scanning eyes, those unfeeling manifestations of automated authority, and the cold, mechanical precision with which it detects even the slightest tremor, speak to a systemic oppression of ruthless efficiency. This brutal contrast between its childlike facade and its lethal purpose is nothing less than a reflection of the violence that festers, hidden from view, within our own society. Consider, if you will, the power imbalance born of its exaggerated scale, the psychological torment inflicted by its switch from playful ditty to deadly surveillance. It's the calculated perversion of childhood itself, the familiar turned fatal, an act that represents the corruption of innocence by capitalism and speaks to the ways competition can so pervert our very development as human beings. The automation of death, enacted through the doll, reveals society's chilling detachment from the suffering it engenders. Its pigtails and school uniform a calculated evocation of nostalgia, and its predictably rotating head mechanism, punctuated by those glowing red eyes, a constant reminder of both relentless surveillance and unforgiving moral judgment. Then, there are those forest green tracksuits, each a miniature prison, designed to obliterate individuality, reducing its wearer to just a number in a mass of desperate souls. The uniform color a visual metaphor for equality in shared misery, a standardized shade that evokes a sense of institutional control and crushing conformity. While green traditionally symbolizes hope, growth, and prosperity, here it becomes a cruel irony, the very color of money, luring the desperate to their deaths, creating a deceptively playful atmosphere in the arena of that deadly game. The facility, seemingly located within a lush, green landscape that promises freedom, stands in brutal contrast to the artificial and controlled environment within, revealing that the forest isn't an escape, but the bars of another cage. The guards, clad in jarring red, act as a constant reminder of that power hierarchy, an authority that dwarfs the green-clad players and reduces them to mere pawns in their ghastly game of chess. Green becomes associated with powerlessness and submission, its institutional quality conjuring up images of hospitals, prisons, and all those controlling environments. In Korean culture, the shade represents youth and vitality, but here it's warped, marked as a sign of potential victimhood. Its connection to the green light, just another fleeting moment of permission to live. The shade, deliberately chosen as neither warm nor cold, ensures emotional detachment and adds to the overall sense of mass production, where even blood appears with maximum visual impact against the uniform green. Ultimately, the green tracksuits become the most masterful symbol of how capitalism presents itself as opportunity, while functioning as a prison, the color serving as both the seductive lure and the inescapable mark of institutional control. The disclaimer of physical rights contract, in its brutally precise language, lays bare a system that literally commodifies the human body, and Gi-hun's potential loss of a kidney and an eye serves as a stark reminder of how debt is no mere financial abstraction, but a visceral threat that consumes the very self. Debt is not just a line on a ledger, but an insidious poison that isolates Gi-hun from his family, particularly his daughter, and the sacrifices his mother makes further illuminate its devastating intergenerational impact. The stigma of debt creates a social ostracism, a shame that pushes these characters to ever more desperate acts. The gambling addiction of Gi-hun shows its cyclical, self-perpetuating nature, while the game itself represents its ultimate moral compromise, an exchange of life for the faintest hope of financial freedom. The loan sharks embody that institutionalized predation, their methods disturbingly similar to the banking system's indifference, a mechanical cruelty that mirrors the game itself, transforming debt into a form of socially acceptable violence. The desperation that grips these characters reveals debt's true nature, a mental torture that manifests in the same constant anxiety, the same perpetual state of survival mode that dominates the game, exposing the myth of social mobility, where even education, as seen with the contrast of Gi-hun and Sang-woo, fails to offer any real escape. In the end, Debt becomes the great leveler in the game's grotesque democracy, revealing itself not as a financial obligation, but as an existential trap that consumes body, mind, and soul, making the deadly game seem like a tragically rational choice to the desperate. The physical violence of the game is, then, a mere manifestation of the invisible violence of debt, made shockingly visible in our modern society. Each player, reduced to a mere number, Gi-hun is 456, where names are replaced with easily processed digits, echoes the bureaucratic efficiency with which modern society processes human lives, that same cold precision now applied to mass-scale elimination. 456 total players implies a statistical inevitability, where individual tragedies become nothing more than a numerical reduction. Those numbers, however, carry subtle undertones. 456, perhaps a representation of the end sequence, while 001, the player who is numbered first, suggests both a beginning and a manipulation, each number a small, insidious suggestion of predetermined fate. These numbers, which echo employee IDs in modern corporations, are all part of the same system, a tracking system that resembles industrial efficiency, where the quantification of human value mirrors capitalism's own reductionist tendencies. This numerical system, which creates an artificial hierarchy and a false sense of order of recruitment, not only distances the guards from moral responsibility, but the loss of names becomes a form of cultural erasure, the numbers transcending language barriers, enforced in their degradation, the players now reduced to nothing more than numerical values, just like the prize money, 45.6 billion won. Their worth now purely quantitative. In essence, the use of numbers serves as a potent metaphor, illustrating how modern systems process human lives as mere data points, stripping away individual identity and reducing existence to trackable, disposable units. And then, there are the masks, transforming individuals into mere representatives of a system, the facelessness that acts as a visual marker of institutional power. These masks not only enable psychological separation from the violence, but that very concealment allows otherwise ordinary people to commit unspeakable atrocities, an anonymity that breeds unimaginable cruelty, creating a chasm between action and responsibility. These masks are the embodiment of bureaucratized killing, the very embodiment of an industrial-scale death, where individual identity is lost to organizational roles and personal morality is subsumed under the requirements of the system. It's nothing less than an echo of modern corporate anonymity, a chilling reflection of societal power structures, a stark commentary on institutional violence and systematic dehumanization. The mask instills fear through that act of dehumanization. It erases empathy from all human interaction, transforming individuals into mere system components and making it easier to facilitate collective participation in cruelty. And the clean, geometric designs of the masks, another reminder of the order and control that are a key part of this system, highlight that the mask isn't about the individual, but the system and the power it represents. The covering of the faces, the removal of that last trace of humanity, makes its message clear. It's through such professional efficiency that we legitimize violence. The mask, then, serves as perhaps the most chilling motif, a visual reminder of how systems transform otherwise ordinary individuals into agents of cruelty through anonymity and emotional distance, showing us that institutional violence operates not through inherently evil people, but through that transformation of human beings into faceless representatives of power. The business card, with its seemingly benign format, its veneer of legitimacy, is the very mechanism through which this descent is enabled. The clean, professional design hides a sinister purpose. The geometric shapes hint at the order and hierarchy within the system, and the corporate styling creates a false sense of security. This card is nothing less than a symbolic gateway, a literal ticket to the game, representing the threshold between what we consider normal life and the extraordinary darkness beyond. The phone number, that gateway to the extraordinary, is a modern-day rabbit hole. The simplicity of the design belies its nature as an object that will alter its holder's life. The card, in fact, is a perfect representation of the illusion of free will, its seemingly innocuous nature offering the players the false choice of keeping or discarding it, but each decision acting as the first moral test on the long road to dehumanization. That very decision to call echoes the so-called choices that capitalism offers us all, revealing how desperation itself limits true freedom. With 3 geometric shapes echoing a childhood simplicity that provides comfort and hope before. The horror. That minimalist design, which suggests transparency, acts as another carefully conceived deceit. The white card a contrast to the dark intentions, the professional formatting another element that creates the illusion of a social contract, with a business card now functioning as the ultimate symbol of social mobility. That access to so-called opportunity, all coming through the same business channels that have impoverished the game's participants, which mirrors the legitimate financial institutions. Here we have the ultimate intersection of poverty and predatory systems. The card's innocent appearance acting as a carefully designed weapon, one that disarms its recipients, with the professional design and the simple geometric shapes echoing childhood games and suggesting a regulated, safe transaction. Therefore, the business card becomes a masterpiece of symbolism, exposing how predatory systems present themselves through channels that our society considers legitimate, offering us opportunities that are really nothing more than ingeniously crafted traps. And what that playground? The very heart of childhood innocence becomes a perverted paradise, a traditional safe space that has been transformed into a killing field, where children's games are weaponized, becoming deadly challenges in a place where innocence is deliberately corrupted for the purpose of entertainment. The once safe haven now becomes a deadly trap. The playground, designed for equality and cooperation, is twisted into a brutal competition for survival, where cooperation is perverted into betrayal. The space designed for education becomes an arena for elimination, and learning through play becomes learning through death. This perversion of safety has a psychological impact. Familiar comforts now create maximum psychological trauma, where childhood memories become weapons used to torment, where safe spaces become the ultimate danger, and nostalgia itself becomes a tool of torture. Even the architecture itself speaks to that psychological abuse. The oversized playground elements creating a brutal power imbalance, where bright colors mask deadly intent, and where the games are monstrously scaled up, transforming play structures into execution apparatus. In the end, we witness a temporal distortion where past happiness contrasts with the present horror, where the freedom of youth is nothing more than a mockery of the adult imprisonment, where the innocence of childhood is now but a painful contrast to the corruption of age, showing us the entire timeline of human development in brutal reverse. Final synthesis: the 7 gates of hell. These 7 keywords, dull green numbers mass playground card debt, form a vicious circle, each representing a gate through which humanity passes into its own destruction. Dull, the calculated corruption of innocence. Green, the deceitful illusion of hope. Numbers, the chilling erasure of identity. Mask, the anonymity of cruel, systemic power. Playground, the perversion of joy itself. Card, the dangerous illusion of choice. Debt, the unyielding chains of capitalism, and combined, they create a devastating critique of modern society, where childhood games become murder, hope becomes a trap, identity becomes a number, debt becomes a death sentence. They also act as lenses that showcase how familiar objects and concepts can become weapons of mass destruction. But it is the final, most devastating aspect that stands out, a terrifying reminder that those 7 gates do not lead to an alien hell. They reveal the hell that already exists in our everyday world. The games themselves create nothing new. They simply make visible the violence that's already inherent in our educational systems, the dull, our institutional controls, the green, our bureaucratic processes, the numbers, our societal power structures, the mask, the perversion of our competitive spirit, the playground, the illusion of opportunity, the card, and our economic systems, the crushing weight of debt. The first episode's brilliance lies not in the creation of a dystopia, but in holding a mirror up to our own world through these 7 lenses, revealing how the structures of our modern society already possess all the elements needed for this twisted and terrifying game. These players are not entering a new hell. They're just seeing the brutal hell of their daily lives with an unsettling new clarity. This, in the end, is what transforms Squid Game from mere entertainment into a profound social critique. It shows us that the chasm between our so-called civilized world and the game's brutal reality isn't nearly as wide as we'd like to believe, and that those 7 gates do not lead us somewhere else. They show us where we already are.